the numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zura. With me, as always, is
Coach Nez and
Ted Renner from the Hong Kong Sleepover.
We are in Dead Bug Studio. I forgot that part. We're also at zpnetwork.com, zoicsonline.com. We're on Facebook at the Nothing Shocking Podcast community fan page and the Quad Cities Rock and Roll Junkies interest group. Our Twitter handle is No Shock Pod. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, all your podcatchers. Please subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We'll read your reviews on the air. Our sponsors are
Ragged Records in Davenport, Iowa, and Rock Island, Illinois. Legends Guitar Picks out of Milan, Illinois, and RockstarPicks.rocks out of Queens, New York.
And the flood is going down, so hopefully they can get back in there sooner or later. I don't know what's going on much more than that, but I know
Just a total mess down there in downtown Davenport.
Oh, I can imagine. The photos I've seen of Ragged that was crazy.
Yeah. Hopefully they can get it all cleaned up and get back in there, though.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah, they are in Rock Island, though, so please go support them there and on eBay. As always, I want to thank the band Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music.
How kind.
Very happy to. Glad you guys like it that much.
Yeah, it's pretty infatuating.
Good.
Yeah, and our guest this week is Acey, Slade.
Joan, Jett, and the Blackhearts, the Murderdolls, Dope, and many more that we don't have to mention.
Some we can't say out loud, and you'll find out why later on.
Yeah.
Because he says it out loud. But yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit, but we have Ted here to talk about the new Hong Kong Sleepover record.
Yes, so it's been released. What was the release date of that?
February 25th.
And it was, the process of recording that album took how long?
It took us over a year. Yeah, it was well over a year. It was, we started in January. Oh, my watch just beeped. Sorry. It started in January of the previous year, and I think when we started, we had 7 songs written, and we had 3 songs that we were like halfway into. Like, I think it was November before I finished lyrics on a song that we had just started. So it was a process. But the cool thing was, it's at my house. So it wasn't like we were going in and out of a studio somewhere. We were there. We kind of said we weren't going to play any shows so that we would get through the album quicker. But then we got about halfway through the album and we started jonesing to play live shows. So that slowed things down a little bit. But yeah, been out. And
it's identifiably heavier than your last release.
You think so? You think it's heavier than, you guys feel like it's heavier than Bolshevik?
I do.
It's definitely more, I don't know. It has how do you define heavy? I think everybody defines heavy a little differently. But it definitely has, it's not a repeat by any means, I guess is what.
Good. We didn't want that to happen, so that was definitely in our minds.
Right. And so here's the thing. And I understand with a new album, you want to play all the new songs.
I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
So the first time I saw you guys play off this new album, that you guys played the entire, is that right?
Yep.
When you opened up for Eastside Gamblers at Rascals.
Mm-hmm.
But then you guys went to Macomb and you didn't do the same thing. Did you play some Bolshevik stuff?
So 2 different shows. So, and 2 different kinds of shows. So when we come into the Quad Cities or when we come, play someplace like Rascals, we've got an hour set or we've got a 45-minute set. And so what we wanted to do was we said we're going to come in and we're going to drop the album and that's it. And then we're going to walk away. So, but the next night when we played in Macomb, there was only 2 bands on that bill. There was us and Eastside Gamblers, and so Gamblers only had like an hour set. So then we had another 2.5-ish hours to fill. So what we had decided was we were going to come in, play the album, take like a 10-15 minute break, and then come back and do a greatest hits thing. So not only did we play stuff off Bolshevik, we played all kinds of stuff. And I think we even threw a cover in there. I think we played Lifer by Down, which that's of the 2 covers we ever do anymore. It's either that one or it's Unsung by Helmet.
Oh.
Those are like the only 2 cover tunes we ever do anymore.
So as time goes by, how will you guys structure your set list? When you including Bolshevik and the new album and then stuff that you've done before Bolshevik, how will you kind of, I guess, maybe schematically frame that out?
So it depends on the show. So, for example, we're supposed to play in Indianapolis here a week from Saturday, and we're the opening act. We've never been over there, so we're the opener. And I think they said we have like 35 minutes. So rather than get up there and waste time, because we like pretty much every other band that gets on stage, they tune to E, right? Well, we tune to C and B. Like we have a couple of tunes that are in D, but pretty much C and B for the most part. So it's we come out and we play our C tunes, and then we change tuning, and then we can do our B tunes. And it's not something like you can go back and forth because you waste a lot of time on when you're doing that. So we usually have our set list really structured. We go through all this, we make the changes. But we said, hey, if it's 35 minutes, we're not wasting time with the set change. So in that case, we can't play the whole album. So what we've said is, what are we going to do? Are we going to do a B set or a C set that night? And we agreed, these are the songs in C, these are the ones that we're going to do. So we're essentially going to go over there and do greatest hits, the Hong Kong Sleepovers greatest hits in C, in 35 minutes, and basically that's going to be, we started calling it our butt kicker set years ago. We just go in and we say, hi, we're the Hong Kong Sleepover, and then the next time you hear us speak is to say goodnight, because we just play all our songs back to back to back to back to back, So, and it's usually done very well for us. People are like, holy crap, you guys just murder it. And we're like, yeah, that's the point. That's the idea. So that's how we will structure those. It's going to depend on the show, and it's going to depend on, whether people have seen us or not, and, things like that.
One of the cool things I like about you guys is that if you asked me what my favorite song was, I don't know that I could tell you. So when I go to see you live, I don't really care. I'm always going to hear something I like. Because honestly, both albums that I have, I only have the last 2 on it. Sorry, I'm new to the.
I'll get you a copy of Mustard.
But I got to get one too.
I'll mail those up.
I like literally every song. When I listen to it, I just listen to the album, or I'll put them both on and hit shuffle. It doesn't matter to me. I like every song. So if I see live, it doesn't. If you forget something, or not forget, if you don't play something, or you do, I like the. It's kind of like, I guess, Black Labels would come to mind, where I don't really. There's no song I like more than the other. I just kind of like them all, and it's just like every set's a little different, and that's kind of the fun thing about you. I mean, I guess. If I had to, I have my favorite riff or my favorite chorus, but I don't really songs. That's what I think is so neat about you. When you're writing the song, this is different than Bolshevik. Were you thinking of that while you're writing it? If you had a song that sounded too much like it, were you like, oh, we gotta not do this riff or whatever?
No, that didn't come up. I think that our writing style is completely organic. Like somebody will come in with a riff, and they'll play. And it either kind of catches or it doesn't, or we will say, Pete's the one guy that, like, I swear to God, and I love Pete to death, but I don't think he can count to 4. So he plays a riff, but what I mean by that is he'll play this riff, and usually he'll play something and it'll go so long and then it'll repeat, and then it'll go so long and repeat, and when he does it, it's like, where in the hell are you starting that from? Like, where do you start counting? And I've heard Mike tell him, he's like, I can't even count what you're playing. I can't even count what time that's in, So then one of the two of us, either Waylon or I, will shave a couple of notes off of it or add a note to it to get it into some regular thing, and that, in my opinion, I could be completely off, I think one of the other guys would tell you something different, but in my opinion, that's how something starts. So somebody comes in with a riff, either me or Pete, and we work that, and then it's, okay, now where's this, and where's that, and where's whatever. So there's never, I think I'm never a conscientious, we're sitting down to try and not do that. I think if anything, what we're sitting down to do is we're sitting down to say, yeah, that's Hong Kong Sleepover. Like if you pay attention to like our changes will be on 3, and it's like, okay, that's a Hong Kong Sleepover change, or that's a this, or that's a that thing, but never, we're gonna axe that because it sounds too much like what we've done before, or this. Now I will say that there are songs that are in, if you look at all of our songs back to back, there are songs that we never play back to back live because someone could go, that's the same riff, or that's a close enough riff, and we didn't realize it until like 3 years later. They were like, hey, how'd we get away with that? So that it exists, but it was never on purpose, or,
Going back to the live set, you guys haven't played Not Enough Whiskey the last couple times I've seen you guys.
Right, and we've been getting a lot of heat for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, I almost feel like your iconic song.
Somebody said it was our rock and roll all night, which makes me cringe because I fucking hate that song. It does. It makes me cringe. But at least it's not the same lyric over and over again. Like I've told the guys in the band, if I ever write where it's the same lyric over and over and over again, that's a sign. That's me trying to communicate with them that I've been compromised and I need to be killed. Because I don't want to ever do that. But yeah, I get it. I think we don't want to rest on our laurels. It was like, we've had success for that one. Let's show the other songs that we've done. And I love, off this album, obviously I like Fire and Blood a lot. I mean, that's one of my favorites. I love, and it's different. Waylon loves it. I love it. Pete doesn't like it very much. Villain. I love Villain.
Yeah.
To me, that's one of my. I love the fact that it's just got a groove to it. That part in the middle where it's got that climb that kind of goes over and over and changes like that. I love stuff like that. Yeah, there's just I could play this song or this set, like I could sing that album over and over again, over and over. It's easy for me. It's fun. I still feel like it's powerful. It's just like we dig it. There were songs on the last album, like on Bolshevik, like 3, 5, 6. If you brought a gun to band practice, we still wouldn't play 3, 5, 6. Seriously, that's just one of those songs that we worked on that. There must have been 500 iterations of that song, and we worked on it, and we worked on it, and we worked on it. We finally got it to where we wanted it, and then we started playing it live, and we were like, nah, no. We should have just, So that's kind of the way it is. But to get all the way back to your question, we will go back to playing Not Enough Whiskey a little bit more, I think. But we really just want to get the album out there.
Sure, yeah.
Throw all that stuff at people.
So the song that caught my ear, is it? I hope I'm saying this. Is it Roller Derby Girl?
Roller Derby Girls, yeah. Yep.
That's my favorite song because it is something totally different than the rest of the album, and it's so funky. And when you go on and you ramble on, I don't know everything that you're saying up there, but it's fun. It's different. And
yep. That was. I get. Somebody goes, you should write a song about this. Like, that's the line. We'll be talking and we'll be laughing and drinking, and somebody goes, you should write a song. Like, the whole reason that the song is called Taste the Chain was because Pete was like, you should write a song called Taste the Chain. Okay. And so then there's lyrics. So I had a party at my house one night, and this girl was there. They'd had a roller derby team in Macomb. And my friend Rachel was there, and she was like, oh, you should write a song about this. Well, we did. Well, that was one of the first songs that we wrote after Bolshevik. And so that's been around forever. But we really didn't play it very much because we were like, whatever. Well, then when it came time to write the album, we were like, we really put a lot, I think not a lot, we put more effort into it. And it was like, okay, that middle part, that's like my rip-off of Wango Tango. No, for real, man. Like when we were doing that, we would do it live and it just never kind of came across. And then so when you're in the studio, you're like, okay, how do we get that to work? You know, what vibe are you going for? What kind of a thing are you trying to bring into play here? And I was like, I really like this in Wango Tango, and I think we can make it a little bit more comical, you know, and throw it out there, and it worked. And then to bring, you know, we had kind of said, because I'd always spoken that line that because every other bitch is going to be limping to her car tonight. I'd always spoke that live, you know. And when we said we were going to do it on the album, we were like, we got to have a female voice do that, you know, somebody that sounds a little deranged, you know, which gives you that I've been hitting the head too many times in roller derby kind of a feel to it, you know. And this lady that did it's actually a professor in the theater department at WIU. Nice. Right? And she, like, no, I think she's the chair. She's the chair of the theater department. She came in and was like, nailed it. I think that's 4 takes put together at that where she does that, and she just aced it. Oh, so
that's hilarious.
And she's like, you know, if you're ever playing live in Macomb, let me know because I'll get up on stage and say the line. And I'm like, cool. Oh yeah, that's great. So yeah, that's the one that we can, when we release this stuff on CD Baby, we can see, you know, we can track and see what's doing well and what songs what. And that was the first one that unseated Not Enough Whiskey.
Really?
Yeah. Now, Not Enough Whiskey has gotten back on top of it, but for about 2 weeks after the album was released, that was number one. So.
Oh, very cool. I know maybe we should probably kind of wind this down before we get into the Acey Slade interview, but Bob says, you know, he doesn't have a favorite song from you guys. And this is not off Birchable, but my favorite song from the band is The Ballad of Malcolm Reynolds. For some reason, that song, I think that was the first song that I heard you guys play down at Ragged Records.
Yeah, we used to open with that.
Yeah, that was I instantly heard that song, and it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted to go next door to grab a beer and start drinking. Yeah. Right, that song just does it for me. I don't know what it is. Yeah, it just does. So.
Yeah, for me it's parts. I mean, I really like the riff to The Hell of Being Cut to Pieces. I love the title too, and then I like the kind of the chorus of what it means. I don't know, just the whole. I don't know why. At least, I mean, it'll probably change too the more I listen to it because I've listened to it maybe 30 times now, which is a lot. But you know, and I don't know. It's just kind of a neat thing. You mentioned the lyrics. Someone just throws up a topic and that you just kind of write a story around it, or what is your process? Sometimes,
you know, like every now and then things like that will come up, but like Ode to Ian Frazier is obviously about Lemmy. That and the lyrics for Grousers. So Grousers is a story, which I'll tell you in a minute because I think it's a good story. Grousers is a story. Ode to Ian Frazier, it's just kind of like you have the riff, and you get an idea of the phrasing, and then in some situations it just comes out, and it's just words, you know, and then you go through and you're like, okay, I take that word out and put this word in, and then it's cohesive from one to the next, you know, and it works with the rhythm and the whatever. You know, like sometimes you should write a story about this. Sometimes like Fire and Blood is all about the TV show Vikings. Like, well, not about the TV show, but it's about Vikings from watching the TV show. You know, you get inspiration from different things. Grousers was just like we started playing the riff and one line came to my head, and then from that line, like everything kind of evolved around a story. And the story was we played this show. They were like, you guys go on at 10. So we were like, okay, so we showed up and we're there. You know, if somebody says we're real professional about it. We want to be there, do our set, get off stage, get room for the next guy. So they said, you guys go on at 10. Well, so we got there at 8, in order to unload and get ready and talk to the sound man and figure out where we need to be and kind of warm up a little bit and whatever. And the guy goes, "No, that was a misprint. You guys go on at 1." So we're there at 8 o'clock ready to go, and we don't go on for another 5 hours, right? So we sat there the entire time. And the show was great, and the people were great, and we sold a ton of merchandise and whatever. But it was, we had to sit there for 5 hours, And so, and while I'm sitting there, I have a friend of mine who is, he tours with Tom Kiefer, right? So I'm sitting there, and he and I text each other at gigs. He's like, "Tonight's horrible gig is," or I'll say something to him and whatever. And so I texted him. I was like, this is what I'm doing tonight, whatever. And we're selling merchandise. And he sent me a picture back. He was sitting with Lizzie Hale. Like, he was at Lizzie Hale's house having a drink, And so he sends me about this picture of him and Lizzie Hale, like, sitting next to each other like this. And I'm like, you can suck it. I'm at this crappy gig where I got to, I'm not going to get home until 5 o'clock in the morning. And you're at Lizzie Hale's house. You can suck it. So that's what Grousers is about. It's that line is, you've got a taste for blood. You want to play shows. You want to be on stage. You're going to do it, no matter how much it sucks, no matter how many hours you're going to sit there, no matter how much your buddy's hanging out with Lizzie Hale. You've got a taste for it. You're going to get up on stage and do it. So it comes to you from the universe, I think, is the easiest way to say it,
That was an interesting story.
Right?
It really was.
Like, I wanted to reach through my phone and punch him. It's like, I'm sitting here and you're with Lizzie Hale. So
wow.
But it was a good gig. They're all good gigs. I wish that I could walk through a transporter and to be to the show, sell merchandise, hang out with people, drink, go up on stage, get done, do whatever, and walk back to the transporter and be in my living room. The bad thing is you can't. And the bad thing is that I don't hardly ever play shows in Macomb, so it's, a 2-hour drive to the Quad Cities, or it's a 2-hour drive to Peoria, or it's a 4-hour drive to Indianapolis, or Des Moines, Iowa, or St. Louis.
Was that Alice Cooper saying you're not paying me for the 2 hours I'm on stage, it's the 22 hours around that you're paying the ticket?
Right, yeah, so it's band practice is 2 hours, 4 nights a week, or it's 2 hours, 2 nights a week, and then there's the loading and the unloading and all that. So yeah, it's never the hour I'm on stage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dog sitting, sorry.
It happens.
Yeah. I think that's all I got for you. When you coming back to the Quad Cities? That's my last question.
I don't think we have anything on the books after this weekend up here. But we just found out, so I'll tell you this because this is a good plug. 3 years ago, we have always said as a band we wanted to do something, some kind of a benefit. And so 3 years ago, we did a show called Rock and Roll for Kids. And it was where we got a bunch of bands together and all the proceeds went to St. Jude's. Then we lost the venue that we had to do that. So we just had somebody reach out to us the other day and said, we want you to start that back up. So in Macomb at the Forum, which used to be the old Illinois Theater in Macomb, on July 20th, we are resurrecting Rock and Roll for Kids. So, and we've got one band confirmed to be with us at the moment. We're reaching out to 2 or 3 more. Hopefully it'll be a 4-band show, and we'll have T-shirts and sponsors and all that type of stuff.
Oh, super cool.
So, yeah.
Very cool.
And we want it, now that we have this venue, we want to do it as an annual thing. So.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
What do you got, Bob?
No, that sounds great.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much for making the pilgrimage back
Thank
up.
you guys, man. I love coming up and listening to the people that you guys have on the podcast. I think it's fantastic, man.
Well, this is the 3rd interview you've helped us out with, right?
Yeah.
So cool.
Next time we'll have to do it on a weekend when you're going to be in town already, so you don't have to drive up here for
right?
no reason at all.
No, but it's not that bad because you're just a little bit this side of Milan. So literally, it was nothing to get up here, and hell, I'll be home and be able to have a couple of drinks before I go to bed, and so it'll be great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. The album is Butcher and Bolt. It's all your online stores, Amazon, Apple, Google, all those places. pick that up. Then there's Acey Slade. That's
Yep.
their interview, so we'll throw it to that.
Yep. Good night. Hey, this is Eric Nesbitt with the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Hey, what's up, homie?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hey, how are you?
What's up, Bob? How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Hey, well, first of all, number one, thank you so much for the correspondence and your flexibility to do this. We're really honored to have you on the program tonight.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I guess first and foremost, through your email correspondence, we really want to kind of touch upon Dead Sled Coffee. And I guess the first thing is, I went on the website and kind of surfed around a little bit. How did it all originate? How did this all come together for you?
Well, that's multi-stages. I always loved coffee ever since I was a kid. And then I got into a bad alcohol and drug problem, and that then turned over into a bad but much better resulting coffee addiction. And about a year ago, my friend Diana Sherman, she hit me up, and since I started playing for the Misfits, our shows are a bit more spaced out, so I have a little more downtime. And I still also get to scratch my rock and roll itch, if you will. Mm-hmm. And Diana hit me up and she said, I got this great idea to start a coffee company where we're going to sell coffee out of the back of a hearse. And I was like, I think that's the coolest idea ever. And she's like, yeah, we're going to call it Dead Sled Coffee because that's Dead Sled is a slang term for a hearse. I was like, that's the coolest idea ever. And then we did some research on transforming a hearse into a coffee truck, and we were like, that's the worst idea ever. And in that time, I was doing a lot of research, not just on how to turn a hearse into a coffee truck, but also researching coffee. I'd been doing coffee journaling for a long time. And so Diana, when she hit me up, I was all about it. And, we did a bunch of research, and then we decided to just go e-commerce and just sell online. And now we've branched out and we're doing a bunch of events, and we got some retail positioning as well. So it's been awesome. It's been really cool.
I guess when it comes to doing research on styles of coffee and blends or what have you, how do you kind of whittle it down to how many different blends are we going to offer or styles? And where I guess maybe do you start with just one or two different style of blends and then you kind of move forward, or how does that work out when it comes to the coffee business?
Well, we started with two. We did one, which was our house blend, which we call our morning blend. Actually, we started with three. We started with our morning blend, an espresso, and then also we did an artist blend with West Memphis 3 character Damian Eccles. So those were the first three that we did. We were pretty opposed to doing flavored coffees because flavored coffees kind of tend to taste like a Airwick air freshener or like a Glade candle or something like that. But I stumbled across a way of infusing a flavor into coffee as opposed to adding an external flavor. And we came up with a black walnut flavor that we love. So that was the next thing. And now we're branching out. We just have a single origin Papua New Guinea that we did with the people from the TV show Oddities. And we've got some more cool things up and coming very soon. So
how hands-on are you with when it comes to, the flavor, not the flavors, but, the picking out the beans and the blends and all that, or do you have to hand it off to someone else to kind of help out with that?
Well, it depends on the situation, but it still always gets vetted through me. So the majority of our coffee is what's called specialty coffee, and that means that it's Q-graded, which is like a big fancy organization of snobby coffee drinkers. And they put their stamp on it and say that this is in the top 20% of all the quality coffee in the world. So a lot of our coffee falls within that. If it doesn't fall within that, it's still a premium coffee. So, for example, the Oddities people, right? With them, all the samples that I presented to them were things that I already vetted. I mean, we discussed it a little bit beforehand where it was like, well, what are you thinking? Like, do you like something that's a little bit more nutty, or do you like something that's a little bit more fruity? Do you like it a little more chocolatey, or like, what are you thinking? And from there, I come up with a lot of alternatives to them, present them to the artist, and then they pick which one they like. Or the other way it works is that I go to our green coffee distributor, and I'm like, hey, what do you guys got that's like really crazy and cool right now? And what's really unique and different? And they'll present some stuff to me, and I'll go through a few different things. And sometimes I go and I'm like, yeah, nothing's really, rocking my world. Or sometimes I'm like, yeah, 3 things are awesome, and my business partner's got to reel me in a bit. So yeah, it all gets vetted through us. Mm-hmm.
Do you have is it kind of a limited time only kind of thing, or do you, once you have a brand, a flavor, and I keep calling it a flavor, I don't mean to. Once you have a roast, do you kind of keep it forever, or like is the Oddities one just a temporary thing that you have to get limited time?
Well, let me interject really quickly here. Part of what we're trying to do with Dead Sled, right, is like I was talking about those Q grader coffee snob type guys, and that's kind of where Dead Sled fits in. Like, to us, we're not those people, but I can certainly speak their language. And the way that we kind of always word it is that hipsters have the best coffee, but they've just got terrible taste in music. And
exactly.
And that's where Dead Sled comes in. So it's kind of like if you don't know like the vernacular or the wordage, nobody's going to laugh at you, like flavor or whatever. I know what you mean, and that's totally okay. Like, we see ourselves as a gap, bridging a gap between like regular coffee drinkers like you or even like one, my business partner Mike, who's like, I don't have time to figure out where, on the equator this coffee was roasted in the elevation. But I do know that I'm tired of gas station coffee. And so they can lean on Dead Sled, and they can let me talk to the hipsters who have terrible taste in music and go and then listen to their terrible music, but drink their good coffee and figure out the good coffees for everybody, So don't worry about that. Like, coffee should be fun. It should be a great experience, and it shouldn't be something that causes people to feel nervous. So that's totally cool, man. Don't feel nervous about any of the verbiage or anything like that.
Have you tried the other? I know some rock stars just put their name on another brand that makes coffee, but then there are a couple that actually, kind of do what you do and start their own brand. Have you kind of tried the competition out, or do you just kind of strictly with Dead Sled and working forward with that?
Well, that's the other thing too. Is like I don't think that there's competition. I think that there's plenty of room on the dance floor for everybody to mosh. It's not a one-man mosh.
Awesome.
Very good.
Because that looks stupid. Everybody's seen that guy. He looks silly. We don't want to be that guy. No, but you know what though? I have tried the Dave Ellison coffee, and that's really good. Well, I tried 3 of them. 1 I wasn't crazy about, and 2 I thought were really good. I haven't tried Charlie Benante's yet, but I know who he goes to roast it, and they're a very, very good roaster. So yeah, they're. I mean, as long as they like it, as long as people drink it, like it, that's all that matters,
Well, I'm a big Aerosmith fan, so I've been trying Joey Kramer's for a while, but I'm putting it in the cart now of yours to try to see if I need to make a change or not. So. Or maybe do both. Do both. I like to mix it up.
Well, you know what? His is one I haven't tried yet, but I've heard it's really good, and I'm an Aerosmith fan, so that's good.
As far as how you you sell your product, whole bean, ground. Our household, we have a Keurig machine. Will we ever see Dead Sled offered in K-Cup, or are you offering K-Cup yet?
No, we're not yet, but we're working on that. That's been a bit of a dilemma for us for a couple of reasons. One, if you there's been a lot of fuss about the ecology of the cups. So the problem has been that we are a new company, and there's biodegradable cups, and then there's recyclable cups, and then there's, can I curse?
Sure.
And then there's Fuck the Planet cups. And the Fuck the Planet cups are really cheap. And like I said, we're a new company. So we're trying to go with the recyclable cups. And also the main thing, too, is that it's got to be really quality coffee that we put in there. So nothing happens overnight, you know what I mean? So we're on it. We're doing the research.
This is kind of funny because my wife, she works at a coffee house / ice cream shop. And when I told her about Dead Sled Coffee, her radar went up. Will Dead Sled Coffee be offered to, is wholesale to like restaurants and what have you like that? Or is it pretty much just regulated to the home consumer with their coffee machine? Or where do you see this go as the future goes as far as putting it in restaurants? And
no, absolutely. Yeah. We do business to business, and we sell it. Debonair Music Hall here in New Jersey has been a really big supporter of ours, and they buy like 5-pound bags at a time. And and even with the different venues that do purchase our coffee, we tweak the roasts specifically for them if they have any needs. 9 times out of 10, they're really happy with our morning blend, and it's just that. But sometimes they have requests of things being tweaked a little bit one way or another.
I guess one more question on the coffee end of things from me is that, when it comes to coffees, I like to try, every type of blend I possibly can. I know where my wife works, they have a light roast, then they have their house medium, and then, of course, they have their dark French roast. I've never found a really good, flavorful light roast coffee, and I guess maybe you can shed on a little light on it. What is it about light roast coffee that you just don't get a whole lot of flavor, or have I just been drinking the wrong light roasts?
Well, actually, it could be the way you brew it. So usually what I do, because with light roast, it can go a couple of ways. One thing to remember is that a lot of times the lighter the roast, actually the more caffeine it has, because when they roast the coffee darkly, a lot of the caffeine gets roasted out. So there's a lot of these companies right now that are advertising like our coffee is the strongest and it has the most caffeine. Well, if that is true, they're probably artificially adding the caffeine with chemicals or something else. But a lot of times try this, like try taking the light roast, but just altering the mix. So adding like more grinds if you're making it on your own. But chances are if you get it in a restaurant or someplace out, they're doing the same recipe to make it as they would all the coffees. And yeah, it might be watered down and it might be a little bit weak, but sometimes you could take a light roast and you just add a little bit more of the grounds to it with the same amount of water, and you'll get a banging coffee.
Oh, very good. Good, Bob.
That's awesome. Well, I just ordered some while we were talking, but I do want to, with the festival thing popping up, the rock festivals across the country, is that ever something that you've been able to, I know Dave Ellison's gotten his in there. Have you guys looked into that at all? Because I think that'd be a really cool market or it's always fun to drink coffee at a rock festival. At least I haven't.
I do. I do all the time.
Yeah, right. Actually, I think that we are doing the Bash Festival, which is Rancid. Who else doing that? I always forget. I get it wrong. It's and I should know. But it's Rancid, Suicidal Tendencies, who I'm bandmates with Dave Lombardo, drummer of Suicidal Tendencies. So that's going to be awesome. But Rancid, Suicidal, I think Pennywise is on it, and H2O, Madball, and L7.
Very good. Very good. I know we want to kind of switch gears on you. We want to touch upon your career in rock and roll and what you've been doing and what's coming on in the horizon for you and a little bit of the past. I guess right now there's no surprise that you've been participating with the Misfits here and there. I guess as far as that goes, outside of you're performing with the Misfits live, what else have you been up to on the rock and roll side of things?
Well, I still play with my old band Dope. So I still do some stuff with them. I've been doing some studio stuff. I've got some of my solo music that I've been working on. But really the thing that I'm happiest about, well, no, that would be a lie. One of the things that I'm very happy about with the Misfits gig is that it's a very prestigious gig, and we're playing, you know, the biggest venues you can play, and I can do that, and I still have extra time to work on something else, which has been Dead Sled. But yeah, I mean, like the year before last, I lost track of how many dates I did. It was like I would get done the Misfits gig, take the car straight to the airport, hop a flight, a red-eye flight, and then join the Dope tour, go on with them for a bit, and then get done the Dope show, head straight to the airport, fly to a Misfits gig, and bounce back and forth. So that was taxing. It was awesome. I think I ended up doing something like, I don't remember what it was, but something crazy, like 40 gigs in a row or something. I don't even remember. But it was like the most I've ever done. And some road dogs were like, really? You did that? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, shit. And I like that. And I'm glad I could say I did that. But I'd be happy if I never had to do that again.
I'm sure. You know, you've been involved with various bands and projects. Is that due, you know, when you've been involved with so many things, is it one of those type of deals where it's your creative side coming out, or is it due to bands kind of fizzling out over time? Or do you feel like you're one of those type of musicians that has to do a little bit of everything as far as for that creative outlet? Where are you at right now in your career like that, on those sides of the spectrum, I guess?
Say it again. I'm not sure I understand exactly.
You've been involved with, you know, many bands, projects throughout the years. And, you know, we've talked to many artists that they're involved with a lot because it helps with the creative outlet they might have. They don't want to just be a niched musician on one side of the spectrum. They want to be kind of a multifaceted musician. And a lot of them do it because, well, you know, it's a financial type of thing. And not that's any of our business, but is it one of those kind of things where you've been involved with so many things that it's a creative outlet for you more so?
Well, I'm just a creative person. Like, let's put it this way. I'll never be your accountant. And if I am, you're in really bad shape. I'm always involved in photography and music, and, you know, this coffee business is extremely creative for me. So, and then musically, like I like a lot of different stuff, but I mean, it depends. I've produced a lot of bands, and I like that, but they had to be bands that I liked. I don't know. I feel like I'm always doing creative stuff, so that there's never a time where I'm sitting there going, you know, God, I'm bored, or God, I wish I had some sort of outlet here to get out of my system or something. I never have that. You know, if anything, I have the opposite. It's more like, you know, like sometimes I'm like, man, maybe I fucked up and I should have gotten a job at Walmart or something. You know?
Do you know, throughout your career, were you ever like some of us want to grow up and be rock stars. Others want to just be, like you said, creative. Do you find yourself ever chasing success, or has it always just been chasing the creative outlet?
Actually, it's more chasing a few things. One thing I'm always chasing, man. I mean, I've got the. Sounds so cliche to say it, but, you know, I've really got a wanderlust. So one of the things that I love about playing music, but also about photography too, and even coffee, is I don't like sitting still for too long. You know what I mean? So a perfect example, I guess, in a way, is like the Dope tour that I did. You know, there was, it was a completely full bus. We were lucky to be on the bus, but it was a completely full bus playing to, you know, anywhere from 300 to 1,000 people a night, which is still pretty cool. But, you know, that was one night. And then the next night it was playing with the Misfits to 80,000 people, you know? So I just like being on stage and traveling and doing that whole, you know, it probably would have been better off chasing things financially a little bit better, but it's too late for that now. So
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, you mentioned Dope a couple of times, and I mean they've been. I hate asking this question because I just feel like it's lazy, but they get lumped into that new metal sound, and I hate the genres. I hate we all liked a bunch of different things, and then when you don't know what to call something, you just kind of call it what you're calling everybody else. Was that something that ever frustrated you, or did you not really even pay attention to labels put on the band?
Well, I mean, yes and no. No, not as far as the band goes, because let's face it. I mean, that was the time period in which we came out. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of things that we were. I mean, I guess it's kind of like everything. It's like even within a genre, you can have micro genres. It's like, okay, well, I was never in a rap metal band, so if new metal to you means like rap metal, then Dope was never that. I think of the band as a little bit more like alternative metal because we're a little bit more industrial. But did the band do a cover of "Fuck the Police"? Guilty. Did we have dreadlocks at the time where that was something that was considered fashionable for new metal? Yeah, guilty. But I mean, I don't know. There's things you do now as a band that I don't think really, tie you down as to what you're into. But also the other thing for me is like, I mean, I was always more into punk rock. I was into punk rock and industrial. So the new metal thing, like I never was into 7-string guitars. I was never into bands that had a DJ in them. Actually, maybe that's not a fair thing to say. I would never be in a band that had a DJ in it. And I would never play a 7-string guitar. And that's okay for some people. But for me, it was always about like a 6-string or a 4-string right into the face of the amp, and turn it up. And if you can't get something good out of that, see it,
Did you ever, sorry, Eric.
No, go ahead.
Did you ever feel pressure from record labels to sound like something else? I mean, that's a common thing we get from a lot of artists we talk to is that after a little bit of success, then the record label wants you to keep your sound or or I want you to sound like this. Did you ever kind of feel that pressure, or did you guys just kind of get to do what you wanted the whole time?
Well, let's see. For the first Dope record, they spent as much money on that first Dope record as they spent on Mariah Carey. Why you would spend that much money on an industrial metal band that had a cover of "Fuck the Police" on the record, I don't know. But they did. And they didn't get that money back. And when they didn't get that money back, when we were writing for the second record, somebody walked in with a CD of the Limp Bizkit record and goes, "Hey, did you get this yet?" I said, "No." And they go, "Yeah, well, you should go home and listen to it because your next record better sound like this and better sell as many records." I didn't feel that pressure because I was like, "Dude, who are you talking to?" Like, not, and I don't mean that in an attitude type way. It was like, you can't make a pickle a cucumber again. You can't. Right. It's apples and oranges. Like, I would never write a Limp Bizkit record. And Wes Borland's a great guitar player, and they certainly had a lot of success and everything. Ain't no way that's coming out of these 10 fingers, So I didn't feel that pressure. So I was like, yeah, ain't gonna happen. But as a band, perhaps.
Yeah, and I'm not asking these questions to badmouth Limp Bizkit or any other. I mean, I grew up in that era,
and I hope I don't that way. It's funny because another thing too. Along those lines is, our record company put us on tour with Kid Rock. And when we were on tour with Kid Rock, we're like, yeah, we're going to go out there and crush their skulls. And in hindsight, like, we realized, you know what? Like, we probably shouldn't have played so aggressively or so in your face. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we should have, maybe we would have won a few more fans over, but we were so in your face and so angsty that we were like, yeah, we're going to show them. And it was like, yeah, we're going to show them, but we're not selling any records, which is why you're there in the first place, So
I wanted to touch upon, again, with the genre classification of, rock and roll and metal and all. And we've had a lot of artists that have come on and said, I shouldn't say a lot, but we've had a few that have said, genre classification is just so unnecessary. I wish we didn't have it. It's like some bands are just heavier than others and others. It's all rock and roll at the end. And then some artists will say, well, it is what it is. There are classifications because there are classifications. And I guess maybe in the realm of your thoughts, what do you think about everything being so niched and so pigeonholed into a subgenre of another subgenre of another subgenre?
I think if someone's trying to describe something, that's one thing. But if they're holding you up to it, then that's a different thing. You know what I mean? Like, God, I mean, like bands should be able to reinvent themselves and explore things if they're being true to themselves in that. You know, I mean, but if they're doing it to, I mean, the thing is that if they're doing it to cash in, everyone's going to know anyway. So, you know, shame on you. You're not going to get any further ahead. But yeah, I honestly, I don't have a problem with it really, as long as it's more to describe than it is to hold you to something. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of the artists that we did have on a couple years ago was Demolition Man Tony Dolan, who you played with a couple of weeks ago on the same stage, I should say. He was one person of black metal, and he said, it's just genre classification. He just was totally not up with that at all. It's kind of crazy from a guy from the black metal genre of things, if you would say so. Somebody of his caliber talking, just keep it as rock and roll or whatever. I guess maybe on the flip side of the coin, you talked about touring so intensely with Dope and the Misfits and meeting yourself coming and going. I guess at your age right now and where you're at in your career, I guess maybe where is your head at when it comes to touring now, as far as do you see yourself as a musician that's going to, in the future, tour extensively with some band, some project down the line somewhere? Or where do you see yourself right now in this part of your career?
I still love it, and I don't feel like slowing down at all. I will say this, I hope I never tour in a van again. I don't think I would do that. but hey, you gotta do some things sometimes, No, I mean, I still love touring. It's funny, Etzel, from Dope, like when we talk about tours, like, yeah, well, now that you're, like even when I was playing with Joan Jett, like we would do, we flew to most gigs. And that's what would be like, hey man, like I need somebody to fill in for like a week, but we're in a van. I mean, would you even consider that? And I'm like, I don't care. Like, yes. Like to me, I mean, a lot of times the smaller shows are way more fun anyway. So I don't know. To answer your question, I don't see myself slowing down at all.
Yeah, very good.
Something I always like to ask people is, when we grew up, a lot of the bands, we had to get the magazines and you had to buy the physical copies, and you didn't necessarily know a lot about the bands unless you read the magazines. And today with social media, you can see every little thing about them. And in a lot of ways, the access is neat and cool, but you lose all that mystery that was there back in the, when you're younger. As a fan, what do you prefer? Do you prefer kind of that mystique, or do you kind of like the accessibility?
I guess I kind of liked maybe the MySpace era of music, where it was like, as musicians, you had a little bit of pull, little bit of connection. There's things I really like about social media. There's things I don't. What I don't like is that, the things that get the most attention are the things that seem to have the most weight. And attention can be anything from something shocking to something sexual but it doesn't necessarily mean something creative. You know what I mean? Sometimes the things that really are creative take a minute for your eyes or your ears to adjust to, and they take a minute for you to savor it, and then you're like, oh my God, this is amazing, But it's almost like everything is about trying to polarize people to get their attention. And it's like, well, is it good or is it just attention getting, you know what I mean? But I guess I kind of got off your question. I mean, I like the mystique. I try to ride that line of like, all right, well, what's getting at people's attention? What's making people feel included? But at the same time, like, what am I, not giving up? Like, Batman never wanted anybody to see Bruce Wayne, and that's kind of how I try to think of things to a large extent.
As far as we're talking about the era of technology with social media, and I'm a person that grew up riding his bike, to the record store on Tuesdays for the new releases, to grab that vinyl or that cassette tape or that CD or whatever. And we have a couple of record stores in our area that are still doing fairly well. And I know vinyl sales have improved over the last few years. Bob, did you say something that was streaming vinyl was actually up on streaming or something?
I
like
think
that?
there was a week or something like that a year or two ago.
Right. Okay. So, in your eyes, do you feel that we'll ever see the small mom and pop record shop ever come back again because of the nostalgic, I guess, principles of it all, that people will want that tangible product back in their hand again?
No, I don't think so. No, just because, and I don't think it has anything to do, like, even if you take the streaming element out of it, even if that whole thing didn't exist, people would be buying CDs or vinyl through Amazon anyway. Most shopping is done online now anyway, which, again, there's good and bad to it. In the case of Dead Sled, we couldn't have started this company 20 years ago, because 20 years ago, what platform would I have to promote and sell that product on? I'd have to feed a car and drive around to grocery stores, and then I'd have to hand out flyers or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know how I would have started this company without the internet age. So I do think that in some ways the good side to the digital age is that it can really nurture some entrepreneurial ideas. On the downside, like I said, I do miss the record store days. You know what I mean? I do miss those things. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it has to do with bands being more creative. I just saw this thing that Alice in Chains did that was really cool, where they shot a movie, I guess, like a mini movie that spread out over 5 songs. I don't know if you guys caught that, but it's really cool. You didn't, I know. And you know why? Because there's just so information flooding you constantly. And what a great concept from a great band that's big. We should have known about that, right? Absolutely. I found out, I don't even remember how I found out about it. It's like, Alice in Chains, this new record, they did like a mini, like it's almost like a Netflix of each song. You know what I mean? So you're almost like getting that Netflix click type thing going on after every song. Great idea. So I think part of it is you just got to be more creative with your marketing, and that's great content. I mean, to do what they did, it's not quite as cool as holding a physical component in your hand, but it certainly rivals it.
Absolutely.
Just kind of looking through your, Wikipedia page, the most accurate thing in the world. Is there? I mean, you play with a lot of people, Dope, the Murderdolls, Joan, Jett, we've mentioned the Misfits, among others. Is there something that you kind of have a most proud of moment musically in your career that you look back and just like, yeah, that was awesome?
Yeah, when I was in the band and Joan got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, playing on Oprah, we played on Oprah with Miley Cyrus. That was pretty cool. Those are things that, it's weird. It's like when I got the Joan gig, I was just happy because I kind of thought music was behind me and I thought it was over. So I was like, yes. But what I didn't realize is that my mom and dad could then go around and tell people, like, if they said that their son was in dope, they'd say, well, you should take him to rehab. If they would say my son is a murder doll, they would say he should be in jail. But when you tell them that your son plays with Joan, Jett, and the Blackhearts, they go, oh, that's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? Yeah. So stuff like that, it's like, I don't care you hear all these bands say, well, we don't care about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all that crap, whatever. Yeah, you don't care about it because you keep getting turned down. But you know what? Once you get in, you'll be like, you know what, that's pretty awesome. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. The Misfits selling out the Forum in record time, that was pretty awesome. There's been a few. There's been a few hang your hat moments that it's like nobody can take that away from you. A lot of them were with Joan, a lot of them were with the Misfits. But even with Dope, it was like the first time I walked on a tour bus because we had toured in an RV and finally we got a bus. And I was like, this is awesome. This is cool. Or like with the Murderdolls, with some of the awards that we won. And none of this is like bragging. It's more, you work hard. You know, you make a lot of sacrifices. So to have some of those things, yeah, like enjoy it. I don't care what anybody says. If you're not enjoying some of those things, I think you're a Grinch, a musical Grinch. That's what you are.
You mentioned Joan Jett, and it seems like lately she's getting all the credit that she's kind of earned over the years is like really starting to hit her now. It seems like we almost took her for granted for like, you know, the late 80s through the 90s, even to the early 2000s. But in the last 5 or 10 years, I feel like she's really starting to finally get the credit she deserves. I mean, was I just not giving her the credit, or do you kind of feel the same way? Like this last few years, she's really starting to really get noticed and treated like the proper legend that she is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's totally true. I think, you know, I feel like she really, in some ways, didn't quite get the credit that she deserved in some ways. But in some ways, I think it was kind of spot on. I don't know.
Right.
It's a weird thing. It's like, I'm happy for her that she's, just for her personally, because I don't care what anybody says. Like, you start to get the recognition you feel like you deserve, and it's a good thing. So I'm happy for her, you know. But yeah, you're right. It has been, the pendulum swings, doesn't it? You know. Yeah. Even the Misfits, it's like they wouldn't have sold out an arena 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, it had to take this much time for people to realize that they missed something or they needed something, or that you can't take it for granted because everybody from the Ramones is dead. Everybody from the Clash, not everybody, but a couple of the guys from the Clash are dead. And, you know, those formidable punk bands, there's not too many of those guys left. You know, the Sex Pistols got back together again, but obviously there's no Sid, but that didn't last too long. So I think people are kind of like, hey, we can't take it for granted if it comes back around, you know?
So a career high wasn't playing in Chicago on the 27th during a 7-inch snowstorm during April?
That was so bizarre. That was so weird. I was like, yeah, of course.
You know, we were standing out. We
landed. It's like 65. It's a beautiful day. It was like, oh, this is gonna be great. Snowstorm. You know.
We were standing outside, in line to get into the show, and my buddy and I, and it literally you could not see, you know, I wouldn't say 20 feet in front of you because the snow was so heavy. It was so wet.
Yeah.
It was coming down so hard, and so we're thinking like this is almost like surreal. First of all, I'm going to see the Misfits for the first time, but I'm seeing them in a snowstorm at the end of April. It just the whole thing.
And then the next day, it was beautiful again.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, I have one last question for you before, and then we're going to leave you alone for the night. Cool. This is kind of a curveball question. You are a contributor to the book Sex Tips from Rock Stars. How did you get involved with such an awesome thing as that?
Well, that was with my buddy Paul Miles, and I don't remember how Paul. You know, like when you're friends with someone for so long that you can't really remember how you got to know each other. But Paul, the guy who wrote it, him and I have been friends forever, and he asked me to be a part of it. And the funny thing is that when I did the interview for that book, I had gone through a really, really bad breakup. And, you know how these things work. It's like I did the interview, and then it was like 3 years later the book came out, or 4 years later the book came out. I couldn't remember what I said, and I was terrified. Because all I could remember about doing that interview was how mad I was at my ex at the time. And I was like, oh, God, I hope I didn't say anything stupid. I hope I didn't say anything I regret. And fortunately, I didn't. The only things that I did say that were digs or swipes or little personal things were the things nobody would have caught anyway. So that was a fun book, though. That book ended up being a lot more fun than I thought. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, what if this is like a really like bad, like, you know, salacious, you know, book that's kind of gross or something, you know? And it ended up being a really cool book. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, before we let you go for the night, is there anything that you would like to plug and promote?
No, just Dead Sled Coffee. You know, I'm always, the best thing you can do is just keep an eye on my socials and see what I'm up to, because I'm always doing new things. And, you know, I got the coffee company, and that's going to stay. And, you know, we got the Misfits show on the 27th, and there's lots of other things on the horizon. I got my own model guitar out now. It's pretty cool. This new thing that I'm working on now with the guitar company called Marvin Guitars. It's pretty cool. The whole concept is that it's the guitar is shaped like a model like I would play. And there's 4 different colors that you can pick from, and they're all colors that I would use. But no guitars are built until you order it. And you can change the fret wire size, like the size of the frets. You can change the pickups, and you can change the color. So I see it as a joint venture between me and the customer and me and the fan. And then if they want me to sign it, I'll sign it. If they want a stage played one, as long as they order it in enough time for me to get it before a show, I'll play it at the show and then send it right off to you afterwards. So it's a pretty cool idea. I think it's like we're working on the guitar together. I felt like there were guitars in the past that, like when it's somebody's signature guitar, it's like, oh, they've got their autograph on it, and they've got the graphic for their album on it, and all that. And that's cool sometimes, but I wanted something that was personal between me and the person who's going to play it, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
So I got that going on, and yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, this is how it's going to work. We have a episode or 2 that's going to be released before yours, and we think about like 2 weeks, Bob, you think? Right around 2 or 3 weeks?
About a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, week and a half, 2 weeks. We'll have this. Bob's our editing wizard, so he'll have it all edited and ready to go. And once he has it all finished, I will email and text it to you. And then if you could, please share it on all your social media if you could for us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And great name for a podcast, too. I'm a big James Addiction fan. So.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, very much. Well, okay. Yeah. So I want to thank you, and Bob wants to thank you so much for your cooperation. Yeah. And it's been fantastic. And if you ever want to come back on, you have my number. Text me, whatever, and we will have you on whenever you want to come back on the show.
Awesome. And if you ever, like after like a couple months, if you ever like, Acey, like, you know, we've been going through our files, and we got a couple weeks where we don't have anything to post. Do you mind like reposting on your socials so that we can like, you know, reestablish the content again? Just let me know, and I'll be more than happy.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. We deeply appreciate it.
Because people forget, you know what I mean? Sometimes you forget about that stuff. So, yeah, don't hesitate to say, hey, dude, can you plug the podcast? I don't mind at all.
Oh, fantastic. And also, too, a lot of times what we'll do, I shouldn't say a lot, but we have, we've brought artists back on to do an intro with us for another episode featuring somebody else. So if you would ever like to do that with us, let us know.
For sure.
All right, man.
And like I said, no mention of the Misfits name in the promotion of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We will not touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Okay. Otherwise, Jerry only and Doyle knock on your door, and you don't want that.
No, thank you. So, all right. Well, hey, have a great night. Thank you so much.
They may not physically do that, but the idea of them, like, you know, knocking on your door and you opening the door and those two guys being there is pretty frightening, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
All right,
have a good night. Okay, bye-bye.